Uncut.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of COASTER-net.
That's right, we're back.
We are blowing people's minds here tonight, bringing back Uncut, back from the grave, back from the dead for haunt season. I don't know why.
COASTER-net Undead.
Yes, so Uncut is back, and we are here tonight to do a complete rundown of some of all these new coasters that are being announced for the 2023 season. We were going to do an update on DarKoaster, and then we said, you know what the hell? Let's talk about Dollywood.
Let's talk about all the other little rides that, that we haven't talked about yet.
Let's talk about everything we have completely ignored for this whole announcement season. So we said, why not do an Uncut? But before we do that, we got to introduce ourselves. Of course, I am Andy Rabarchek from Chicago, Illinois, joined once again by my co-host here for COASTER-net Uncut. We got Danny Miller. Danny Miller, how's it going?
That's right. I am fantastic. Fun fact, Andy, I don't know about you. I did not go to a single theme park in the month of August this year.
I did.
You did. Yeah,
I
did. I went hardcore in July. We had our meetup with the Patreon folks of COASTER-net up at Michigan's Adventure. Then, there was a Lake Compounce event. There was a Legoland and a Rye Playland event during the month of July. Also went to Hersheypark to say goodbye to Wildcat the week before it closed. Finally obtained one of the rarest North American coaster credits myself, the Rye Playland Kiddie Coaster, the little wood coaster that only kids can ride and typically only during an ACE event. There was a gentleman there who rode the train after us who had been going to the park. He was a local, had been going to the park for more than 50 years and had never ridden it before. And 3 other folks on there, that was the last operating wood coaster in North America that they needed to ride. And they completed all North American wood coasters by riding that. So that's, I'm about, I think 12 away from that feat. So like, that's a very hard thing to do. So that was quite cool.
Well, I was just doing some research as you were talking there. Our last Uncut show was August 20th of 2020. So we are 2 full years beyond that.
Well, because we did Thrilling 32s, we've done the updates, and then you've had the kids going on shortly after that. Yeah. So, we've been super, super busy with other things. And, of course, we've been heckled for not providing the content. But, it's actually been a while since we did a most anticipated show because we did those pre-COVID pretty regularly. And then when COVID came around, all the new rides got delayed. We didn't know when was going to open up when. And, this isn't really going to be a most anticipated show. We might talk about that a little bit, but, we've got 4 or 5 new rides opening next year. I don't think we've got any that are jumping off the page as like must-go rides. I think the only exception is maybe the one we haven't heard about yet, which is RMC Wildcat.
Oh, yeah, right.
And sort of the uncertainty with that because why don't we start there and then we'll go into the rides we actually know about. RMC Wildcat, Jeff and I we did a show speculating about Worlds of Fun and Dollywood leading up to theirs. But you and I did a show a month or 2 ago when the closing of Wildcat announcement came out, and we did some speculation. There was an interview that came out a little bit more recently from Claire Hain, the founder and president of GCI, that they had put in a bid for the project and were not awarded it. So it does seem like Wildcat is not going away in its entirety, that something is being done to it, and RMC was the obvious choice. We sort of broke that down in our show. But we've been more than a month now since the July 31st closing and no announcement just yet. And we're kind of beyond announcement season at this point, which is odd. Doing some research on other similar sized wood coasters to be RMC'd and when they closed. Georgia Cyclone closed on July 31st, 2017 and reopened Memorial Day weekend of 2018. Hersheypark historically always opens things Memorial Day weekend. So the closing timeline aligns there. Wicked Cyclone, July 24th, I believe, was the closing date for the original Cyclone, and that opened just before Memorial Day weekend of the following year. So everything is aligning except for the fact that we haven't heard anything yet Some of my Hershey friends speculating maybe they'll make an announcement when season passes go on sale for next week. Well, season pass holders, including myself, got their renewal emails this weekend. No announcement. They've got one more weekend of their summer operation season coming up this weekend. And then the following weekend, 16th, 17th, 18th, starts their all-new haunt event, Hersheypark Dark Nights. So do we get an announcement in between those?
Well, and that's my question, I guess, because like I do get emails from Hersheypark, and it seems like they've been really hyping up this haunt event. Is it possible
they're waiting until that gets going?
Well, let that get going, or maybe even let that finish, because they want people to come out to the haunt event. And if you announce a new roller coaster, people might be like, maybe I'll just wait till next year and just go during the summer.
Good
so
point.
Maybe they want to get that full impact of the haunt. And most haunts aren't like that because they've been around for, Halloween's been around for 25 years. Horror Nights been around for 30 plus years. So like you don't have that issue of people already know what the event is. They know the quality of the event. So, but this, it's still in that infancy phase. And like, do you not want to step on
they're not going to
those
ditch the haunt after 1 year, right? I mean, they're going to do it. They're not going to do it for 1 year and say, okay, that was a bad idea.
But you absolutely want people to show up and want your biggest crowds because you want to show to whoever, hey, this was a good idea. Like people who push for this are going to be like, hey, I need this to be successful in its first year because it's successful everywhere else. Like, if you announce a roller coaster, it's kind of like you're cutting off your own legs at some point.
Yeah. Well, and Great Adventure has always had success with Fright Fest. Dorney Park's haunt has always been very good. There's a lot of local haunts. Phoenix Fall Fun Fest, immensely popular. There's a lot of non-theme park haunts that are very popular as well. So like you're entering a market that's already jam-packed with haunts. And Kennywood's haunt is well known.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, do you want to announce the roller coaster and have people say, I'll just wait till next year's haunt or wait till next year's event or summer?
Yeah, so I'm excited. I'm planning on going to that at least once in actually a couple of weeks. I'm hopeful. I'm hearing really good things from some folks I know there. Who knows what's going to happen there. I'm hopeful that because there's only 4 houses to start, that they will be very high quality houses. So I'm cautious. I'm cautiously optimistic. There. One more thing on that note, my friend Emily pointed out on the season pass holder Facebook page, someone asked about season passes for next year that are good for the remainder of this year. And Hersheypark posted and said information on those types of passes is going to be coming, within the next week or so. So it's like renewals for current pass holders, but new passes, I don't know if they're there yet. So maybe they're waiting until Dark Nights officially kicks off because they're hyping it up, and then they're going to stop hyping it once it gets going in mid to late September and people have already bought their add-on tickets and they're cut the lines, and then maybe they'll come out with here's the 2023 new season pass that is buying new for non-renewals that also gets you in for the rest of this season. Oh, and by the way, we're building this new ride next year for when you buy your new pass.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of extra moving parts here that make me not to the point where I would like freak out and be like, wait, what's going on here? Like,
I'll be worried if. So I'm not going on opening weekend for Dark Nights, which is the 16th, 17th. I'm going the following weekend for CocoCon. If we don't have something by then, I'll start to get worried.
Aren't there rumors though of like stuff from RMC being on site already though?
There's pallets of wood that are already out in the elements, and they've already begun taking down station panels. The exit ramp has been torn down. The station appears to have like ladders and stuff in it. So like they're not just tearing it down. So they're certainly reusing the station in some regard. Otherwise, it just would have been knocked to the ground. It's nothing but wood and shingles. Yeah. So, they're certainly doing something with it, and they are working on it. I had a friend from work who went there last week, and then I went this past weekend, and the amount of work had been changed. There is work actively going on, nothing structurally yet, but I feel like that's...
And there's no big movement to save Wildcat, right? Like there's not nonsense like that going around. Like nobody's that dumb. Like
no, not beyond the typical nonsense.
Yeah. So yeah, so like I don't know if I would be at the freak out stage yet. I just think that there's a lot going on at that park this year, and like there's a reason for why things aren't being announced currently. But I wouldn't, I'm not too concerned about that. So let's move on to our next ride. Obviously, that's whatever they do is probably going to be either that or Air Force Run, because it looks like Air Force One is quickly becoming a 2023 coaster, right?
They're pulling a West Coast Racers down there.
They are taking their sweet time, and I don't foresee them opening it this year. Although you never know with those type of places, you never know to draw people. Anyway, our next big one is probably DarKoaster, which came out of the blue, I think, for a lot of people.
Well, this is the most recent announcement, right?
Yeah, so we knew something was going on inside of Dark Castle, like that was no question. We got hints from the park. We didn't really follow them along too closely as we did previously. Once again, time constraints. But they are doing a launch coaster inside Dark Castle, which I think, outside of trying to redo the dark ride, which I really liked Dark Castle as a dark ride. I thought it was one of the better dark rides out there in the world. So this sounds like they are gonna have some dark ride elements with the coaster, so it's not gonna be like a Flight of Fear. There's gonna be supposedly some physical elements as well that you go through, kind of like I would probably guess what we're going to see is a lot like what's down the road for Bolton,
Yeah, it's just going to be the whole ride is going to be that, right? Because it is quite a bit of a smaller ride, and and thank you to the fine people of Busch Gardens Williamsburg who invited us down to the announcement. None of us were able to attend because none of us really live that close, and it was on a Tuesday. They're come back from a holiday weekend. So hopefully they'll be kind enough to invite us again when the ride opens. But we were able to see some photos from other folks who did attend that the track work is done inside the building. So yeah, they're done. And it seems like, at least from the concept art and the renderings, hopefully it's going to be going through scenery items. Like you said, it seems like it's going to be an extension of the Dark Castle story from the Dark Ride.
Like, I'd love for them to bring back that pre-show, like not maybe the exact pre-show, but something like that, because I thought that was a really cool, like, it made it feel more, because Disney does that on almost every one of their rides now. It's almost
the fact that it wasn't tied to an IP, like it was something they created. It was something that their creative team came up with. That's got to count for something. And I've said for a long time that Williamsburg has been one of my favorite parks, and the fact that Dark Castle went away, they really lacked that high end dark ride. And Europe in the Air / Battle for Ire, was fine, but it really wasn't it. And
that went away real quick too.
Yeah, I mean, if we get a dark ride that's going to be a roller coaster, but it's going to have enough dark ride aspect to it that it feels like I'm getting my dark ride fix, then I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
And I'll be honest, the trains look pretty sweet. Like I don't get the whole, because who's building this one? I forgot who, or I should say who built this one in the past tense.
Oh geez, what the heck?
But the trains are that straddle. They're calling it a straddle.
Yeah, this one is intimate. It's the wave breaker style of trains.
Yeah, exactly. But the trains themselves look really cool.
They're like snowmobile. They're supposed to be snowmobiles. They do look a lot like wave breaker trains with the jet ski. They look pretty much almost exactly the same. Actually,
they just somehow retrofitted snowmobile tracks on it, which I think is actually kind of creative, kind of cool. I like the color scheme, the purple and the black and the white. I'm hoping their merch game is on point for this one, because it was not on point for Dark Castle. I don't know if I've ever seen Dark Castle merch. Have you?
So we've got about 2,500 feet of track, just under 2,500 feet of track, a max speed of 36 miles per hour, and it's got 4 launches. So it's multi-launch. So certainly there's probably going to be a lot of capacity in on this. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they even have some elements where trains that are in different blocks could go by each other. I don't know. It's a pretty short track length to be able to do that, but with those speeds, it should have a decent ride time. And who knows, maybe they pull like a Blue Fire type of thing where there's a dark ride. It seems like there might be a dark ride segment, or at least a little bit of a pre-launch type of segment where there's some theming going on before you launch. Similar to what Verbolten does before the drop track. So this to me, I pointed this out to you the other day. If you forget Invader for a minute, between Verbolten, Tempesto, Pantheon, and now this, 4 of the last 5 coasters at Busch Gardens Williamsburg have been launch coasters. But before that, we didn't have launch coasters. So, they've got almost an even mix of lift hill coasters and launch coasters now.
I just think with the space that they're working with, and it is kind of self-imposed space at some level. I just think that they just see the launch coaster as the way to go. You kind of look at what the other SeaWorld parks are doing recently too. Not Wavebreaker. Wavebreaker is a launch coaster. Icebreaker is a launch coaster. Emperor is a standard B&M. What other rides, like Texas Stingray was obviously not a launch coaster. So I just feel like the whole chain is moving towards that launch coaster method of let's not do lift hills anymore because we don't want to go high.
Yeah, well, and the thing with DarKoaster, it seems like it's going to fit a different need too, because Pantheon is the super high thrill world class launch coaster. Verbolten, I think, was meant to be the family coaster, and they got a little bit more of a thrill coaster out of it. Yeah. This seems to me like it's going to be more of the moderate family thrill. It's not going to have the big elements. It's not going to have the fast speeds or the big drops that Verbolten has. So this seems to me to be an attempt to maybe rectify. Not saying that Verbolten was a bad investment. It absolutely was not. It's one of my favorite rides there. But this seems like they're sort of bridging the gap that they attempted to fill with Verbolten with Family Coaster, that they got a little bit more thrill than they bargained for out of Verbolten. So now they're trying to bridge the gap between Grover's Alpine Express and Verbolten in the steel coaster realm with DarKoaster. I think it fits right in the middle there because Invader is still reasonably high thrill. So I think this kind of nestles in that category as far as genre goes.
Yeah, and obviously, that's your opinion, and you probably don't have any evidence or citations to back that up or anything like that. But whatever, we'll move on. But in that same theme, we're talking about this family coaster, and we see that's kind of like the theme of the year here across the different chains.
Isn't it
right? Like at this point, we've already talked about Stephen and I talked about the Wild Mouse at Cedar Point family coaster. We got Dollywood. Big.
Well, yeah, because Jeff and I did sort of a prediction show the day before the announcements for Dollywood and Worlds of Fun both, and we were pretty spot on, if I can say so. I think we were pretty spot on. We knew we were getting a long, likely multi-launch family style coaster from Dollywood, and that's what we got in Big Bear Mountain. I think we were all looking at Mock because the track record there with Hershend and Mock has been pretty strong lately, and that just seemed to be the obvious choice. I don't think anybody expected Vekoma to come out as the manufacturer of this ride, but one thing that enthusiasts have been saying is look at all the great things that Vekoma is doing overseas right now. You look at a park like Energylandia with like Abyssus and Formula and these other rides like Phoenix at Far Up Summerland and Lek Coaster. These are some rides that we've talked about a little bit in the context of the Thrilling 32. We've talked about Lek Coaster a little bit, but Vekoma is doing some really, really neat things. Now, Big Bear Mountain is not on that scale, but
yeah, because if I was I've been all aboard the Vekoma train lately. I'm like, okay, Vekoma needs to come here.
Maybe
to
this is the path to get there.
Maybe, but I think the problem with Vekoma at this point is that their schedule's pretty full across the world, and
Maybe
it looks like
rightfully so.
Dollywood found their way onto that schedule somehow, and we get this, which I think, if I'm looking at this, it's a really big roller coaster. Like,
it's really long,
shockingly large. Like, I am like, I'm just looking at the overview right now, and it is a shockingly large roller coaster.
People were curious as to why it was like Dollywood's single investment. Well, one, inflation, but two, it takes up a lot of freaking land.
Yeah.
and terrain land too.
Yeah.
And hopefully there's some decent theming.
It's out there. So, and I'm sure there's going to be some decent theming. You see a lot of,
Fire Chaser Express was themed very, very well. I mean, Lightning Rod is themed very, very well where it has the theming. I mean, that's always been Dollywood's thing. So I would expect nothing less out of it. Even Dragonflyer, which doesn't have a tremendous theme, it has some tremendous landscaping and scenery around it, like that Wildwood Grove area. So I expect nothing less out of Dollywood from this one.
And like, ultimately, as much as I would love to see the largest investment in Dollywood be a big roller coaster, I get that park, if there was any park in the world that should be focusing on family roller coasters, it's probably Dollywood, because
it's been Dollywood's thing for years.
And it's the thing of Pigeon Forge, it's the thing of that area in general. Like, yep. It's a family resort of all ages. Like, you really have to, like, you can't just pretend to cater towards families and then constantly build lightning rods. Like, yeah, I would love them to do that, and they probably have the money to do that. But and people are like, well, you built Fire Chaser Express, and now you're building this, and what's really the difference between the two? And honestly, I don't know if there's a whole lot of difference between the two besides color. Manufacturer and some other stuff, but like, I get it. Like, you have a bunch of little kids running around the park. You want those family coasters that everyone can ride, and something. It's almost like a Disney perspective, right? Where
a little bit, yeah.
Where we can't build stuff that's too big, and they already have enough stuff that's big. You have Wild Eagle, you have Lightning Rod, you have Thunderhead, you have those rides that are big already. Like, I think you have that need filled, but filling in that bottom, you got a nice little kids area, you got Fire Chaser, and now you're adding this and Dragonflyer. They actually have a really nice kids. Like, I've always said, I thought Kings Island was the best park for kids, but I think Dollywood's making a real play here, at least for maybe not little kids, but maybe for that like middle school tweener type kid where they just hit 48, but they're not ready for the 54s, you know?
Yep. No, I 100% agree with that for sure.
So like, I may not be super excited about it. Like, this ride's not making me book a trip to Dollywood anytime soon. Although I want to go to Dollywood and book a trip there, this ride's not going to make me do it any faster. I get that it may make other people book a ride there. Be like, hey, that looks really cool, and I think my family would like that. So I'm okay with that. And then the other family ride that I think is a little bit more than a family ride, that I'm hoping is a little bit more than a family ride, and that's Zambezi Zinger, which Danny Miller, are we still like, so one, Worlds of Fun announced a roller coaster. Two, me and you are doing an Uncut episode right now. Like, has the world exploded and we're in like some parallel dimension?
The only thing that is grounding us in normalcy is that the folks here at COASTER.net were spot on with another prediction, because Jeff and I predicted, and again, this was not a tremendous reach here. It was very much suggested that this was going to be the first GCI Titan Track project from a ground up, and indeed it does seem like that's what we're getting. We had thrown out the possibility that it might have inversions or an inversion because of the Infinity Flyer trains, because that's what they are designed to do. That is not the case here, but I think I'm quite all right with being wrong on that one. To get sort of this modern interpretation of Zambezi Zinger, very similar layout to the previous ride. It's a little bit of a blast from the past with the modern spin, which I think is that's a really hard match to make this day and age, with all the new ride types, all the new technology, to try and build a new ride that is really kind of a throwback ride without just bringing back the old ride, is really, really difficult to do. I mean, Knoebels has always been really good at bringing back the old ride, Flying Turns, Black Diamond, they've got the Byron Curve now. We've seen, we've speculated for years now, Cedar Point bringing back Wildcat. They've done, you talked about themes earlier tonight with family rides. How about the Wild Mouse, the Cedar Point Wild Mouse making a return in a modern form? That's kind of what looks like what Cedar Fair is going to be doing here for a little bit, because Zambezi Zinger is a modern take on an old classic that people miss.
Yeah. And like, if you look at like the ride itself, like we had just ridden the Titan track at Michigan's Adventure on Wolverine Wildcat, and they just used it on the first drop. And that first drop
and White Lightning, they used it for a small portion at the end. It's at least when it's infancy, it seems like a great product. It rides really well.
Rides super well. So being able to ride that on a completely new, completely redesigned and custom track with Zambezi Zinger, I'm hoping that the animation is maybe a little slower than what actually comes out of it. I think might get a little faster stuff. So I have high hopes, and I'm just happy. I'm beyond happy that Worlds of Fun got a roller coaster. Like,
right?
How long have we been talking about this? How long have we said that Worlds of Fun is the sleeper park in the Cedar
We've been
Fair
talking about this since Cannon left Lisaberg.
Exactly. And
Cannon has come to the States, been built, and has gone through a global pandemic and has not yet reopened due to supply chain issues before Worlds of Fun has gotten a coaster.
Seriously.
And it will probably open before Worlds of Fun opens their coaster.
Most likely, I would hope so. But here we now see Cedar Fair, and Worlds of Fun was also a park, may I add, that a lot of people were like, oh, they're going to sell Worlds of Fun. Oh, they're not investing in that park anymore. They're just going to sell it off and drop it off in Valley Fair and whatever. Blah, 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 blah. But now we see Cedar Fair making a concerted investment into Worlds of Fun. And I think that's probably the biggest news here, because if this actually spikes the attendance and people start realizing how great of a park Worlds of Fun is, and not just from Kansas City, but all over the country. I know Kansas City's not the easiest place to get to, especially for you damn East Coasters that travel 15 minutes and you can spit on 3 parks. Like it's not the same out here in the Midwest. You got to travel 9 hours or 6 hours to get to the next park. But if people can realize that Worlds of Fun is a great park, this may be just the start, because Worlds of Fun has a shit ton of space to use. And they can really start investing and putting in some cool stuff. And I also want to hear some reports from Mamba. Brad did not tell us how he went to the park. Is Mamba still running without the trims? Because that's what
everyone that I've heard this year says that it's running with no trims. So
I heard they were doing it because they were changing the control system, and that's why they were running it with some reason. But if they can run that,
I don't know.
The trims,
I would just as soon believe that enthusiasts think it's because of magic wheels.
Well, true. So I do not disagree there. But if Mamba's running great and you have a brand new roller coaster, and we know Patriot's a top tier invert, despite what your idiot belief says, Prowler is a top tier wood coaster in the top 5 of any rational person's top 5 wood list. This is a world-class park that people are sleeping on, literally sleeping on this park. And their haunt's a fantastic haunt. I went to the haunt last year. Their haunt is a fantastic haunt as well. I don't know why people continue to sleep on this park. And I'm glad that Cedar Fair sees what I see, and we might be seeing more of that.
No, it's Worlds of Fun. I think you and I have always been in the. you and I disagree on a lot of things. Worlds of Fun is not one of them. Worlds of Fun is a park that you and I have always agreed is a vastly underrated park. Prowler is a vastly underrated ride. We talk about it every year in the Thrilling 32. Why the hell doesn't Prowler get more love? Thankfully, Alex Baker finally made got his ass over here and rode Prowler, and he is firmly on the Prowler bandwagon like we are. And you mentioned Prowler being a top 5 ride. I mean, I have it a little bit lower, but it's still definitely.
I didn't expect you to, because I said rational person, so that's why.
Well, yeah, but Prowler is still a top 10 ride all day long. I mean, absolutely. So and if you've ridden less coasters, it should be in your top 2, top 3, top 5 for sure. Worlds of Fun. Patriot is a fine ride. Mamba has always been a fine ride. Timberwolf with the redo, I think is still very, very solid. They remind me of my home park, Dorney Park, where it's like I really have a hard time picking out a bad ride in that lineup. Timberwolf was the bad ride for years. They have a boomerang. Okay, fine, whatever. But I mean, they really don't have a bad ride. There's some parks, and that's another thing that Cedar Fair has been doing recently is they've been taking out the bad rides. Vortex has gone away. Disaster Transport went away. They've been taking out the bad. Now they've been taking out some of the good rides too. They're taking out a lot of things, but they have been taking out the bad rides.
Yeah,
which is
good. We need Anaconda gone soon too. Then
that's kind of the one that's still hanging around. And Carolina Cyclone could go away for me too. But I mean, they've RMC'd the correct rides to this point. Hurler and Mean Street,
and Danny Miller. They got rid of the worst part. Kaga gone.
Well, and that's going away, right? They're getting rid of the right stuff in general. They did the Rougarou treatment there with the floor. So I mean, this has kind of quietly been a trend for a while with Cedar Fair. They got rid of Skyrider, the Togo stand-up, and replaced it with a giant ass B&M dive coaster up at Canada's Wonderland. They got rid of Stinger over there, and if Railblazer gets relocated from Kaga to Dorney Park, it'll be the second time that a ride from that plot of land at that park has been moved to that plot of land at that park.
Well, it fits. It fits already. Why?
Because in Vertigo became Stinger from the same plot of land that Railblazer is now on, and if Railblazer goes to Dorney at that same plot, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It's like the same thing in basketball. You keep running the same play until they figure out how to stop it. It still works.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess. Now we could argue whether or not that Cedar Fair is broke, but
Yeah. So, So I think in general, we're not going to do an anticipated list here. We're going to wrap it up. But
Wildcat is obviously the most anticipated, if that is indeed happening for 2023. And certainly we'll do a separate show on that when that happens. Yeah. But it's really kind of pick what kind of ride you like. For me, I think it might be DarKoaster because I like the theming. So that might be the one.
And I have high hopes for Zambezi Zinger too. I do have a little high hopes for that. So we'll see when all this is said and done. But Danny, we are back. Uncut is back after a 2-year hiatus.
Haunt season's here. We got haunts coming up at Dark Nights. I'm probably going to the Compounds haunt and the Dorney haunt, which Compounds has their haunt back after a couple of years. Dorney's haunt is back, so I'm going to haunts for sure. And then Andy, we're in the Thrilling 32 voting season before too long here.
Not too long. We're about a month and about 2 months away from that right now.
Yeah, about 2 months away.
So, as always, thank you for joining us here on COASTER.net Uncut. I'm, of course, Andy Barchak from Chicago, Illinois.
I'm Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
Right on, Ride Warriors.
See you guys. Thank you.